Welcome back from the break. Now, President Akufo-Addo has asked rich countries to allow heavily indebted poor African countries to swap their debt with climate interventions. The president has been addressing the world at this year's United Nations Climate Change Conference, COP27, in Egypt. Ghana is currently facing crippling economic crisis fueled by huge debt. The debt situation is proving to be a major stumbling block to getting an IMF deal in time. President Akufo-Addo took advantage of the COP27 stage to raise the issue with the rich world. The president did not hold back in dismissing the global financial architecture as not fit for purpose.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I thank President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi, the government and people of the Arab Republic of Egypt, for their warmth of hospitality to the Ghanaian delegation since our arrival in this ancient historic country, and express our appreciation to the President for hosting this all-important Conference of Parties, COP27, the fifth such on African soil, which has been so well organized. Today, extreme climate occurrences such as severe precipitation and floods, as adaptation costs continue to outstrip current international public finance flows, we must, as a matter of urgency, mobilize and scale up adaptation finance inflows to ensure that vulnerable countries are able to meet their adaptation needs. It is critical in this regard that the developed world makes good its long-delayed pledge to mobilize and make available $100 billion annually to the poorer countries to assist in the fight against climate change, and commit, as agreed at COP26 in Glasgow, to doubling resources for adaptation. Furthermore, it is plain to most that a radical restructuring of the global financial architecture, as proposed by the African finance ministers, to accommodate the demands of the developing world is of urgent necessity. It is evident that with these polycrises, that it is not fit for purpose. And I also urge those who hold African debt to commit to debt for climate swap initiatives. I'm telling all partners, take a better look at Africa and see her for what she is, a land of opportunities and growth. I know this may sound unrealistic, taking into consideration the dire situation most of the continent finds itself in today, in the aftermath of the COVID-19 pandemic and the Russian invasion of Ukraine. But as far as adaptation to climate change is concerned, nothing can succeed without Africa.
Our Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta is leading negotiations to get debt relief for Ghana through a climate financing arrangement. Joy News understands government is hoping to secure a HIPC-style debt relief. President Akufo-Addo today took advantage of the United Nations Climate Change Conference in Egypt to ask rich countries to allow heavily indebted poor African countries to swap their debt with climate interventions. The finance minister has traveled with the president to oversee Ghana's negotiations. Ghana is currently facing crippling economic crisis fueled by huge debt. And it is proving a major stumbling block to getting an IMF deal in time. Ghana is seeking a $3 billion bailout, but the IMF has made it clear it will not lend to the country with unsustainable debt levels. The Environmental Protection Agency is providing technical support for the negotiations. Executive Director of the EPA, Henry Kokofu, has been speaking to my colleague, Evans Mensah, about the negotiations to secure the debt relief.
Presidency at the CBA. We congregated in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania somewhere this year, and the idea cropped up that judging from the $100 billion promise that is not forthcoming in climate financing mechanisms or strategy, the suggestion had been, why don't we, the developing countries and most vulnerable countries, then on our own try to quantify the kind of investment that we may need to finance climate action programs, so that with that we would then ask the developed countries who are supposed to be doling out these climate financing or climate funds to swap them with our debt burden. That will also give debt sustainability relief to these countries so we can finance and fund climate actions with this money. And the conversation have been going on and on. We went to New York during the UNGA and then further on to Washington. It may interest to you to note that the finance minister of Ghana chairs what we call the V20. And the V20 is the finance minister's forum for all climate vulnerable countries coming together. So he has actually given his full support to this kind of conversation.
My colleague Evans Mensah joins us live on Zoom now. Evans, you've been learning more about this debt relief strategy from some of the technical experts supporting the finance minister. Explain exactly how this could work.
So we start from the 100 billion that was pledged by the West to rich countries over a decade ago that they haven't honored over the time. And each time developing world meets the rich world at these conferences, there's always been a call on the rich world to honor that pledge. Now the strategy which Ghana is now leading is to say that if you can't honor that pledge and pay us 100 billion every year for all the damage you've inflicted on us through the overwhelming emissions that you put into the environment, then why don't you instead forgive our debt? Of course, we owe a lot of debt. They are holding a lot of African debt. Forgive that debt in lieu of the $10 billion, which has come to the negotiation table at COP27. So what will happen beyond the fact that they are factoring in the debt forgiveness? Ghana, as Mr. Kokofu explains, like other countries who would like to benefit, will have to qualify, which means that you have to show that you've put in place climate change mitigation and adaptation policies that are not only reducing emissions in environment, and in some cases even absorbing CO2 from the environment, and then selling that carbon that you have saved to a country that wants to use that to offset their own carbon footprint. Now, the reason why this has become very lucrative now is, remember that the European Union countries have set themselves hard targets for reducing their own emissions ultimately by 2030 and ultimately by 2050. Because of the Ukraine war, they will most likely, some of them will miss that target unless they can offset their own footprint. They are now in Germany and in other European countries turning on their coal mines, which means that they are going to accelerate, more emissions into the environment. They can offset that by coming to countries like Ghana, to give them credit that then we exchange for cash. There is one real example that will bear fruit. The first example of this that Ghana will experience, I understand from the technical team, will come on board and on stream in March of this year, where Switzerland is going to pay Ghana significant amounts of money for reducing emissions in rice farming, for example. And so I understand that 7,000 hectares of rice farms have signed on to this initiative, and it's going to be measured in real terms. And that is going to lead to some amount of money. And the finance minister who's leading this believes in the long term, it could be a solution to our debt problem. Okay.
Now, the president today also announced the impending launch of a major climate initiative that he says will create jobs for Ghanaians. What more do we know about this initiative?
So this initiative is targeting agriculture. And so the plan is to roll out a climate resilient approach that focuses on promoting regenerative agriculture. In doing so, you get more farmers to get into the agri sector and by extension, give them more jobs.
Also, the Land and Natural Resources Minister has been challenging the world to break the silo mentality in dealing with climate change issues. Did he explain what exactly he meant by that?
Now, this is a very important point that John Junapor made today. It comes on the back of the launch of what is called the Forest and Climate Leaders Partnership, which, by the way, is co-chaired by the United States of America and Ghana. So this is a big deal. And it is a UK government initiative that is in total putting in some $12.5 billion. Now, at a panel discussion this morning, Mr. Junapor made the point that this is an example of how when the world comes together and breaks the silos, you can achieve great things.
Issue of multilateralism in dealing with climate changes is one that cannot be overemphasized. The Paris Agreement itself, as you know, was born out of a broad-based consultative multilateral engagement, which resulted in the promulgation of the Paris Agreement, and which has brought about the nationally determined contributions for joint action. And so to work together is one that I believe can achieve results, and working in silos will not give us the results. First of all, it will not give us ownership. It will not engender inclusivity. It will not engender sustainability. And when you look at the agricultural commodity production system and the linkage between producer countries and consumer countries, the need for multilateralism is even more important than ever. And that is why I believe the FACT dialogue, which was mooted by the United Kingdom government, which the Ghanaian government is fully committed to, is one that is absolutely commendable, and is one that we welcome wholeheartedly.
Evan, so what should we expect in the coming days?
Well, the president is just wrapping up his engagements here, but the Lands and Natural Resources Minister is almost holding the mantle now in his absence, and will be doing further engagement, bilateral engagements, in keeping with his own belief of multilateralism and engaging a bit more of the world in getting support for Ghana's agenda towards being a leader when it comes to the developing world in promoting climate change initiatives.
All right, thank you very much. So that's my colleague and editor here at Joy News, Evans Mensah.